On First News today, I'm standing or kneeling right here by a small citrus tree. It's a lemon, and it's looking really good. And they have these little white packaged papers around them to protect the trunks from getting burned by the sun. I think I'm right by that. Dr. Glenn Wright's with me. Dr. Wright, am I correct?
That's right, George.
The sun can split these trunks. How long will they leave that white cardboard on there?
Well, generally about 2 years, or until the trunk gets to the point where it expands the cardboard and it starts to split the cardboard.
Well, it's not an easy job. You just don't plant a tree and just wait for it to grow up and produce lemons, do you?
No, it requires a ground preparation beforehand and proper fertilizing and water afterwards, and insect sprays for thrips, even though there's no fruit. And so it's expensive.
Now, the lemons this year, people tell me that there's less lemons this year, and that's one of our major crops here in Yuma County.
Well, George, there's more lemons here than there were last year, but there's less than there would be in a normal year, and that's because we've had a lot of groves taken out, and then they've been replanted like what we see here.
A lot of people were worried about the fact we're tearing out those beautiful big trees, but they weren't so beautiful to the grower, were they?
No, they had small fruit, and they were diseased, and the limbs were breaking off, and so it's sometimes better just to cut your losses and replant.
Well, how do you know that these young trees here are any better than the big ones you tore out?
Well, we don't actually, George. We're just hoping so, and in about 4 or 5 years we'll be able to look at these trees from a biochemical standpoint and see whether or not they're going to survive.
What is the actual life of a lemon grove? How long does one produce on the average?
Well, I would say 25 to 30 years, although we have a couple here that are 45 years old.
That's a lot of years to grow. And then, of course, people were worried about the burning of the trees. That's just about over now, isn't it?
Yeah, we won't do much of that again until next summer.
Okay. Now, Glenn, let's talk a little bit about the care of these trees. Is there a regular fertilizing schedule you have and certain things you do to raise lemons?
Yeah, there's a regular schedule. Most of the fertilizer is mixed in with the water, or sometimes for small trees it's granular applicated. And then there's a regular spray schedule that one must follow in order to have a good tree.
Well, you know, people at their home, they have a little well around their tree, but out here the well is pretty big. How do you determine whether that fertilizer will get to this actual tree because you have all this other space here?
Well, that's why you would probably want to use a granular application around these small trees. Otherwise, you'd be wasting a lot of it on the rest of the floor where there's no roots. You've got to put the fertilizer where the roots are.
Now, there's a lot of things called grafting, and one of the things that I think was interesting that you can take a little seedling like this and you can make that into what they call a cocktail tree, can't you?
That's right. You can graft almost any kind of citrus onto almost any other kind, and so you could have grapefruit and orange and lemon on the same tree.
People have asked me, anyone specializing in making those cocktail citrus trees?
Well, some of the nurseries do that, and you can buy them at the retail outlets that sell citrus trees.
Okay, but you do a lot of grafting yourself in the nursery, don't you?
Yes, but we don't do citrus. We don't do cocktail trees. We graft new varieties.
And that's what you have going right here. This is one of the newer varieties, isn't it?
Yes, this is a Limonera 8A Lisbon, probably on a Volcamariana or a Macrophylla rootstock.
And that means a lot to somebody, but it's a mouthful. And Glenn, when will this field be ready to produce lemons now?
Well, they may have a few lemons after 3 years, and after 6 they'll be full production.
In a lemon grove right here in Yuma County, and it's not a big one, but it's one coming on. I'm George Gatley, and that is First News Today.